Welcome to Windy City Sports Talk. I'm Zach Bernard alongside my partner Sean Sullivan, and you are listening to the first ever installment of what I hope is a long-standing podcast in sports media. Sean, how are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to get this off the ground. We've been working on this for a couple weeks now, and I'm pretty pumped to get my views out there on the internet.
So am I. Sounds good. Now, considering this is our first podcast, I think we should lay out the format of this whole thing. These podcasts are going to air every Sunday, unless otherwise noted by us. Sean and I will always be the hosts, and if one of us cannot fill the obligation, we will have other personalities who can help take the reins for the week. Sean and I can cover all major sports, first from a Chicago outlook, and then from a national outlook. Obviously, being from the Windy City, we like to direct our focus towards Chicago, but also give our listeners a perspective on the national landscape.
We're also going to have a lot of fun. We're going to broadcast from some local events and hang out around sporting events, even giving away cool prizes at some of them.
Let's go into Major League Baseball. All-Star Week was this week, and let's talk about what we saw from the All-Star Game. Robinson Cano won the Home Run Derby, much to my own surprise, over Adrian Gonzalez. Both put on very solid performances, and it was a really tight final, wasn't it, between the two of them?
It was a record-setting final, actually, because both of their home run totals in the final round were record-setting. First, it was Gonzalez who hit 11 in the final round, and then Cano obviously beat him with 12. Mm-hmm. But really, to me, the Home Run Derby is a bunch of wish-wash. It's just for fun. It messes up the players' swings. It's for the fans. But I think it was especially special this year with Cano, being that his father, a pitcher with the Astros back in the late 80s, ended up pitching to him throughout the whole contest.
Well, here's the thing. Jason Stark wrote an article about how the Home Run Derby can be changed. He said that you take one team of All-Stars and then take guys who aren't All-Stars but would be considered quote-unquote batting practice heroes. He suggested 4 players that would do it. He suggested Adam Dunn would be one of them, Willie Mopena, Mike Stanton, and I can't seem to remember the 4th one. But it was really interesting to hear those 4 names because, let's face it, those guys are not all-star players. But those guys can hit the ball out of the ballpark.
At least not this time. Stanton, he's got a bright future, and Dunn has been a past all-star. But I've heard a lot about Ichiro being a batting practice stud.
Really?
Hitting home. That's just what I've heard.
Huh.
So.
Going towards the All-Star Game on Tuesday night, the National League won the game 5-1, giving them home field advantage in the World Series this year. Prince Fielder was named the MVP with a 3-run homer, and here's a fun fact that they mentioned during the broadcast. This All-Star Game was the first game to feature a home run since 2008, since J.D. Drew hit it at Yankee Stadium.
Really?
Now, what did you think about the All-Star Game this year?
I thought the All-Star Game was not very exciting. I only caught a couple innings of it. I did catch both home runs. After that, I checked in periodically, but the All-Star Game, to me, is again, not something that it used to be. Most of the players feel honored to be there, and they feel obligated to be there. Others, though, it seems like it's not as much as it used to be. Like, it's just a game for the fans. Go throw out your glove, hit a couple grounders, and call it a day. Sit on the bench and enjoy, sitting with people and talking with other guys in the league who you wouldn't normally be able to. But I think that the All-Star Game is not what it used to be.
Well, I don't think so either, and I think it goes back to the All-Star Game meaning something, and I think we could both agree that the All-Star Game we saw in 2003, that was the first, when it was at U.S. Cellular Field, that's the first All-Star Game where it counted for home field advantage, and that was exciting. That was when Hank Blaylock hit the home run against Kerry Wood in the 8th inning, and we all remember that one being special, but, since then the All-Star Game has been very bland, and I think it's because these players don't want to put the effort into having home field advantage because, home field advantage is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all of everything. And no. I think that's why so many players back out of it and don't want to play in it because a lot of guys put too much pressure on themselves to play the best that they can for a game that it's really just supposed to be fun for these players.
And I think a lot of them just want a break. That's what I think it is.
I agree with that, too.
Go home for 3 days, enjoy time with their families, and then get back to it.
Absolutely. And if you're just a regular run-of-the-mill player who guys don't know about, a lot of the relief pitchers on the American League side, not many people know their names.
Yeah, I was like, who are these replacements? But you know what? That's how it turns out.
When you look at the numbers, a guy like Walden for Los Angeles, he's putting up a great season as their closer. And you don't hear these names because they kind of get swept under the rug.
Well, and they're West Coast.
Right, exactly. And everyone's asleep before they get the coverage. But they get swept under the rug. You forget about them. And for them, this game is very special because they get their name out there. They get attention drawn to them. Brandon League's another one who's been having a great season, who not many people hear about. But for a lot of these guys, it's something that they've done before and something that they don't really need to feel the obligation to do again. but for others it's fun. And what matters is it's fun to certain ones. Now let's take a look at the Chicago athletes that we had in there. Of course, being the Cubs fan here, Starlin Castro, it was nice to see what he did. He went 0 for 1, but he came in as a pinch runner, stole 2 bases. He stole second and third because of Walden's slow delivery.
Yeah.
He exposed that immediately.
So they told him that off the bench, go ahead and run.
Right, and Castro's got great speed. They took advantage of Walden's slow delivery, and he stole 2 bags. The problem is he got thrown out at home on what I would have considered not the brightest base running decision in the game. Tell us what the White Sox players did.
Quinton and Konerko both ended up grounding out to Castro, and Quinton reached base on Castro's throwing error. Konerko went 0 for 1, and with a walk, and Quinton went 0 for 2, so nothing spectacular.
Nothing spectacular. Now let's take a look at Chicago baseball right now. The White Sox finished 2-5 on their homestand, dropping 3-4 to the Twins at U.S. Cellular Field before the All-Star break. They are 1-9 in their last 10 games against the Twins. They came back from the All-Star break 44-48, 5 games back of the Detroit Tigers. What did you see from the White Sox coming back from the All-Star break? Because they've been pretty hot.
They're killing the Tigers. They won 8-2 on Friday versus Justin Verlander, who many thought would actually be the starter of the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
In the first game, Carlos Quinton came off the All-Star break 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Dunn and Beckham both had 2 RBIs each. And then Floyd came in and pitched a good game, 7 2/3 innings, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. And then the next day, Saturday, Edwin Jackson pitches a complete game gem. It was a 5-0 win for the Sox. Quinton again, magnificent, 3 for 4. Konerko, Beckham, Morel, and Pierre each had 1 RBI, and Pierre had especially a good game at 4 for 5.
And it was definitely a very good series. It was nice to see them kind of show what people are expecting of them throughout the course of this season. And they're playing a division leader right now. It's very important that they win these games. And they haven't just been winning them, they've been dominating them, especially winning against a pitcher like Verlander the way they did.
Exactly, and Scherzer.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're showing what they're made of. They're showing that this is a team that can win, and I think that they will win.
Yes, sir. So with the All-Star break happening, that marks the halfway point of the season. So one thing that we agreed to do was discuss who the MVP and the Cy Young of each team in Chicago was. Who would you say the MVP and Cy Young for the Chicago White Sox were during the first half of the season?
Well, I think both of these guys are pretty obvious. MVP, obviously I'm going with Paul Konerko. Going into the break, he's batting .319, 22 home runs, 67 RBIs, and a .954 OPS. And then for my Cy Young, Phil Humber, 8-4, a .310 ERA. As for the Cubs, though, on the north side of the city, they went into the All-Star break 2-5 off their road trip. They dropped 2 out of 3 to the Pirates, who have had their number this year.
Yeah.
Going into the break, they were 38-57 in the National League Central Division, 12 games back of Milwaukee and St. Louis. Things aren't looking too good on the north side.
No, they're not, and especially after the All-Star break. So far, we've lost 2 out of 3 against the Florida Marlins, and Carlos Marmol lost the closer's job this week.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised by that move.
Here's what he did. He's been erratic all season long. The numbers on paper look good. His whip is not that good. He imploded on Thursday. He walked 4 straight guys, gave up the double, and his ERA ballooned from 2.57 to 3.64.
Wow.
To add insult to injury, Dempster threw a wonderful gem on Friday, and what he did was he went 8 innings, gave up 4 hits, no runs. Marmol comes in to get the save, and he gives up a run. Luckily, Quaddy learned his lesson, pulled Marmol before the damage could be done. Marshall finished the game, and it was a 2-1 final. That was when he lost the closer's job. Sure enough, Zambrano comes in yesterday. He gives up 8 earned runs in his start yesterday. Things are not looking good on the north side. We have so much great potential on this roster. There's so many great athletic players on this team, and nobody's getting the job done right now. It's time to trade Carlos Zambrano. A lot of bloggers are saying trade Marmol. I would actually agree with that. I think Marmol is younger, but he's been in the closer's role for 2 years. He's been nothing but erratic. I'm sorry. If you're going to close out a game, I want to feel confident in your ability to go in and shut down the guys. I always get a queasy feeling in my stomach when Marmol goes out there because he just doesn't have what it takes to be a closer. Now, if he was going out there in the 8th inning as a setup man, that's where he shined. His ERA in 2007 was 1.43 in a setup role. He can do that. He's fine doing that. The problem I have is that we expect too much of him as a closer, and now we're paying him closer money to do what he's done all season.